Do you think that I felt like the policing in general has become something that's so politicized, right?
Absolutely.
By, people that are wanting to prove their point or earn votes, that sometimes there's not actually the desire from politicians and the mayors and the people that are a lot of times leading, at least financially, the police force. They're not actually concerned about the individual police officers. They're concerned about the look, the shield, the idea that I back the blue, I keep the street safe, but really they don't care about that individual officer.
I cannot disagree at all with that. Because what we're finding when we travel throughout different states and when we work with police officers is there's such a frustration from police officers regarding decisions that are made. There are decisions that are made at the state level or through politics that ends up impacting that officer. So, for example, the way that we deal with juveniles, police officers are almost caught in the middle of it. They still have to do their job, but then whatever decision they have to make, it is not backed up by the judicial system or by the government or by the state. So then that child that is in need of major resources is right back on the streets having the same interaction, or maybe even worse, a more violent interaction with that police officer. So then those officers are like, well, what do I do? You know what I mean? It's pretty common for police officers to develop the following emotional responses, right? You become jaded. You become extremely, extremely fearful of the environment that you work in. You become like almost neglectful. You almost create this numbing experience and you detach yourself from your humanity to be able to go to work. And these are officers that, again, they signed up to do the job because they wanted safety in their community. I'm telling you, I would say by and large, majority of police officers sign up to do what we would love them to see do, right? But we don't consider what happens in that time that then develops this almost like chess game where we move you, we manipulate you however we want to manipulate you. And then you end up in a position where you're like, you're almost having like an out of body experience. And that's also accountability for police officers to recognize this stuff, right? Because that book talks about it too. That book talks about how, as police officers, we are trained to physically protect ourselves, right? I mean, we go through defense tactics classes, learning how to drive the vehicle at high rates of speed in a defensive manner, how to shoot a gun. But the last thing we're taught to do is how to take care of this, right? Matter of fact, in LA County recently, within the past month, they've had 14 or 13 officers commit suicide. That should be concerning. About 6 months ago in Texas, they had a county in Texas, 5 officers from that county, retired officers, committed suicide. So that's telling us something, but we don't want to listen, right? Instead, we want to continue to politicize the issue, right? And we polarize it that you're either here or you're either here. No, at the end of the day, those officers are being stretched to the max that then lead to outcomes that we end up seeing on the news. And again, I say that very carefully because there's a little bit of accountability on myself as a police officer that if I'm not seeing that the police department wants to offer me these resources or the opportunities for me to take care of my mental health, I should also take that upon myself. But even then, it is within that cultural realm that we talked about because it is still a highly stigmatized issue within police departments. The whole notion of mental health. Are you really okay? Are you not okay? You know what I mean? Like it's still an issue that a lot of police departments are having to deal with. But I'm telling you, a lot of officers, they feel a lot of frustration, but they don't realize how those frustrations and how that numbing experience then turns almost like in an outward response to the community where it's like, F you. You know what I mean? Like, the state is not taking care of me. My city's not wanting to take care of me. So you know what? I'm just going to respond to calls like I don't really care. It becomes so natural to take on that response, and you don't realize what you're doing to that community. I remember moving from South Bend to here. I struggled. I struggled a lot. I mean, I worked homicides over there. I worked shootings, stabbings, domestic violence. I was going from call to call to call. Then I come here. And it's like, I was going to these calls and I'm like, why the hell are you calling the police for this? Like, why are you calling me for this? I had a lady crash at an intersection and she hands me the insurance card and she's like, here, you call my insurance. And I was like, no, that's not what I just take your policy number and put it on the report. So then her response was like, what do I pay you for? What do I pay you for? Then I was like, hold on, like, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying is in either side of the spectrum, you're still viewed as a tool rather than as a person that can actually be there to provide the best service possible through human connection, right? But right now there's such a disconnect in politics, in communities with what's going on with police officers. And there's a high lack of understanding on both sides of how this issue is playing out.
On Trial with Josh Lowry.